Now, moving on Late Lunch this afternoon, Jayne Buxton, an ambassador for the Real Food campaign in the UK, which promotes animal agriculture, has published a book recently called The Great Plant-Based Con. And she questions an awful lot around the vegetarian vegan movement. And of course, on our doorstep here in the Northeast lives a wonderful woman. She's managing director of Go Vegan World and Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary, which I had the pleasure to visit in the past. And she's with me on the line today. Sandra Higgins, it's been too long. Hello.
Hello, Terry. How are you? It has been too long.
It has. I'm great, and I'm delighted to chat to you again today. Look, to kick this off, this new book has been published, and she's questioned a lot of what you stand for, and you have now responded. Let me begin with this. People, she says, do not go vegan. You said, I beg your pardon. People don't go vegan for the environment. Neither do they go vegan for their personal health. It runs deeper than this, Sandra.
It does indeed. A lot of people, not only Jayne Buxton, confuse a plant-based diet with veganism. People go vegan because we recognise that other animals have feelings and that their lives matter to them, and that we don't have a right to use them as our resources. So we don't have a right to breed them, exploit them and kill them. But part of being vegan, and a very large part of it, is that we eat 100% plant diet. So this is where the confusion comes in.
And you know, building on that, right, 100%. She's saying, she also says, which is an interesting contention, that it's you want to be virtuous people in this world.
Well, you know, it's very often used when you want to undermine the other person's argument to accuse them of virtue signalling. But far from calling attention to ourselves, what most vegans are doing is calling attention to others, to the plight of the billions of animals who are unnecessarily bred and exploited and killed every year, as well as the very broken system that we are using as humans to meet our needs, and the impact that this is having on other human lives and on the environment, including climate change.
She also questions, you know, which you've heard many times in the past, and you'll hear this, that supplementation is necessary when you are exclusively on a plant-based diet. She criticises the nutritional aspect of living a life that's dairy and meat-free. Well,
you know, I would encourage all your listeners to get their information on nutrition from somebody who's qualified to speak about it. So that's a registered dietitian. And for anybody who's interested in going vegan, and I hope that the vast majority of your listeners are interested, you know, for their own sake and the sake of the environment, in eating a predominantly plant-based, if not 100% plant-based diet, that information needs to come from a registered dietitian with an interest in plant-based nutrition. Jayne Buxton is a management consultant, so she's not really qualified to advise. But all the major world dietetics associations have declared that 100% plant diet is nutritionally adequate at all stages of life. Now, you know, if you go into any supermarket, Gerry, or any pharmacy, the shelves are indeed groaning with supplements. But most of those supplements have animal products in them, so they're not suitable for vegans. So vegans are not the ones creating a market for the supplements. There are, you know, you can eat fortified food. Like, we all eat we've all grown up eating fortified food, because since the Second World War, the foods that people eat most days are fortified with nutrients, essential nutrients that we might otherwise miss. And a lot of plant-based foods are also fortified in this way. So if you have a good bit of variety in your diet, it's predominantly whole foods, fruit, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, pulses, and you're using these fortified foods, then you should be fine. But we do have to be careful. And if your diet is not up to par, and, you know, lots of us are very busy, you know, we can go for a couple of days or, you know, a couple of weeks not eating that well, maybe eating a little bit more processed food than we should. What's wrong with taking a supplement? So the animal foods, the animal agricultural industry, they supplement the diets of the animals. That's how those nutrients are present in a lot of animal foods. Like, we run a sanctuary, as you mentioned, Gerry, and we see the animals are not just living on grass. Anybody who's a little bit underweight or very young or old gets fed supplements. And I have the bags in front of me here, and all the food is fortified. You know,
yes.
Calcium. The farmers spread lime on the land. That's how, because the land is deficient in calcium. Most of the B12 manufactured in the world, as far as I'm aware, is manufactured for the animal agricultural industry. I mean, on my bag in front of me now, there's the food is supplemented with vitamin A, vitamin D3, trace elements, iron, calcium, selenium. So that's why it's in the animal food. So what's wrong with taking a supplement? There was a study done in Ireland only a few years ago in Trinity. They found that 1 in 8 Irish adults over the age of 50 is deficient in B12 and folate. So they recommend a supplement for all of those.
Yes.
Most of us in Ireland, because it's a dark country, if we don't get out in the sun enough, we're recommended to take a vitamin D supplement.
Yes, I take it myself.
Do you? Yeah, and it's a good thing to take. And a lot of people find that their mood is a lot better if they're taking the vitamin D supplement. And most countries recommend that babies are supplemented with vitamins
yes.
C and D.
Yes, and I hear the point, and you make it very eloquently and well. The other thing I'm just thinking here, just comes to my mind, you mentioned whole of life. So a baby's born and many mums try to breastfeed, or if not, they go on to, the bottle and they make up the foods, etc. What about a baby, starting a baby off from the start of life? What's the options there?
Well, the best thing you can do, if you possibly can, is breastfeed
yes.
the baby. We know this. The World Health Organization has issued statements on this. It's the natural thing to do. It's also a way to form a lovely bond with your baby. It's what every animal does. But I do appreciate that some women have difficulty.
Yes.
So there are vegan formulas on the market now, and there are also breast banks. So women who have can spare some of their own milk can pump it and bottle it and give it to mothers who would like to use breast milk but for whatever reason can't use their own. But at all stages of life, right from infancy, pregnancy, infancy, right up to old age, including those with special needs and athletes, you can get all the nutrients that you need in a plant diet. Jayne Buxton has also criticised the protein content of a plant diet. But, let me tell you, protein deficiency is virtually unheard of outside of areas of malnutrition and hunger in this world. It's vastly overestimated. And if you think of the animals that the most non-vegans eat, cows and sheep and pigs, they all eat a plant-based diet. To produce the flesh that people are buying in the supermarkets and the eggs and the dairy. And it's not true that you need to combine a lot of foods to get all the amino acids that you need. Plants contain sufficient essential amino acids. They're the ones that our bodies can't make, and we also store them. So if you're eating a good variety of food, you definitely will get all the protein you need.
A couple of points I want to raise because time will beat us. She also talks about the emissions, and she's talking about the UK. She says emissions from animal agriculture are lower than emissions from other industries.
Well, you see, you have to look at it, first of all, you have to look at it globally, and you also have to look at it from the production and the consumption point of view. So the UK has a lot of heavy industry, and that's why animal agriculture production is lower than maybe other industries. In Ireland, it's significantly higher. We're almost at 40% from agriculture, most of that from animal agriculture. That's similar to the global figure, which is about a third. But if you take the point that she made about the UK is not self-sufficient in the production of food. So they're importing animal products for their population to eat from countries like Ireland. And those animal products have a cost in terms of emission and environmental destruction, deforestation, loss of species, loss of biodiversity, pollution, pandemics. So we have to look at it globally. And we know that we can vastly reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and the other harms of animal agriculture by being vegan and consuming a plant-based diet. The emissions are about half. And you know, Gerry, it's not only what we eat. Being vegan is about recognising that we're just one of many species, all of whom have a right to live here. So the human supremacist notion that regards this world and all its resources as ours, belonging to only one species to do what we like with, that's actually the big battle that we have to face in terms of climate change, environmental destruction, and our future on Earth. So it's not a simple case of eating a plant-based diet. It's about rejecting speciesism, and it's about living vegan.
Yes, and you know, the more I see what's going on in the world, you can understand that it's at the root cause of war and greed and a lot that's going on as well. Eric's on to say, thank you, Eric, to say, hi, Gerry. So interesting listening to Sandra. I believe that every school should teach and introduce vegetarianism and veganism. It's a very noble cause, says Eric this afternoon. Just before we finish, you know, the whole area of, you know, ethically reared animals that have room to roam free and, you know, they live a good life before their lives are ended. She touches on this as well. What's your view on that?
That's a complete myth. There's no way that we can use the life of another being who has the same feelings as us and who values their life just as much as we value ours, exploit them for their bodies and kill them ethically. We can't do this. Even in environmental terms, this is a complete myth, because the grass-based system of the so-called free-living animals is a net producer of greenhouse gas emissions. You know, regardless of the type of farming used, the animal agriculture harms the environment and it contributes significantly to the climate catastrophe, as well as the fact that morally, you know, this is an abomination to be doing this to other animals. And just to pick up on what Eric said there, and thank you for your comment, Eric, but vegetarianism is not what we should be aiming for. We should be aiming for no use whatsoever of other animals. Veganism is a way of living that doesn't exploit or use other animals to the best of our ability. So we don't use them for entertainment or labour. We don't use them in our clothing. We don't wear them. We don't eat them. We have a 100% plant diet. And that's what all the reports that link human health and sustainability, they're all saying this is the system that we need to move towards. And I appreciate that a lot of farmers are up in arms about this because they're afraid. Change is difficult for all of us. It's difficult for me. It's difficult for all of us. But they're not alone. You know, we need our governments to support them. And there is a growing demand for not only vegan food, but you see it in the shops now. Oh, I was delighted to see that on your Facebook page you had an ad, let everybody know you don't need to buy anything from Amazon today. We do need to reduce our consumption in general, and this is something that Jayne Buxton has said. But, you know, people do buy clothes, they do buy handbags, they do buy shoes, and they have vegan ranges now as well. So it's not just diet. It's
not just diet either. No, indeed it isn't.
There is a demand for it.
Sandra, always good to talk to you and hear your perspective as well, and you have a growing following for sure. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Gerry. Nice to speak to you again.
You too. Take care of yourself. That's Sandra Higgins there, MD of Go Vegan World and Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary.